I'm LaVonne. I'm 67 years old. And if there is one thing I have learned in a lifetime of building empires from the shadows, it is that blood is not always thicker than water. Sometimes it is just stickier, messier, and harder to wash off. I gave my daughter and her husband a debt-free life and a secret $100,000 investment to build their future. And in return they handed me a shattered plate and a demand to vacate my own home so they could warehouse me in a nursing facility. They looked at me and saw a trembling, lonely sociology professor clutching a pension check. They saw prey. They didn't know that the luxury apartment building they lived in, the office tower they worked in, and the bank that issued their platinum credit cards were all assets in a portfolio that I control. They thought they were discarding a helpless old woman. They didn't know I was the landlord of their entire existence. By the time the sun rises over Chicago tomorrow, they will be homeless, destitute, and begging for mercy, and I will be sitting in my penthouse, drinking tea, and watching their world burn. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from, or what time it is for you. The air in the kitchen of the Greystone was thick, heavy with the scent of roasting turkey, sage, and the suffocating tension that had been building since noon. I stood over the oven, basting the bird, my hands steady, though I knew Ryan was watching like a hawk, looking for any sign of the tremor he claimed I had. I am LaVonne, and this four-story historic home in the Gold Coast has been my sanctuary for 40 years. It was where my husband Roger and I had built a life, sanding the floors by hand, painting the crown, molding until our shoulders ached. It was a home. But to the man sipping bourbon in my living room, it was just real estate. Through the open archway, I could hear them. The whispers were low, sharp, and distinct, cutting through the soft jazz playing on the radio. It's absurd, Emily. It is criminal, Ryan hissed. His voice had that edge to it, the sound of a serrated knife cutting through glass. 4 floors, 4,000 square feet, and she is just one woman, one old woman, rattling around like a ghost. Ryan, please, Emily murmured. My daughter, 35 years old, and she still sounded like a teenager trying to avoid being grounded. It's her house. Dad died here. She's attached to it. She's selfish, he snapped, not bothering to lower his voice this time. My parents are living in a 2-bedroom condo in Oak Park. They deserve space. They deserve dignity. That music room downstairs, the one she keeps locked up like a shrine, it's perfect. It has its own entrance. It's wasted on her. I paused, the basting spoon hovering over the golden skin of the turkey. The music room. Roger's jazz sanctuary. It was where he had played his saxophone and recorded his final compositions before the stroke took him. It still smelled of brass polish and his cologne. I kept it exactly as he had left it, not out of senility, but out of respect. I placed the spoon on the ceramic rest and wiped my hands on my apron, the one with the faded Queen of the Kitchen logo Emily had bought me 20 years ago. I walked into the living room. Ryan was standing by the window looking out at the tree-lined street. He wasn't dressed for a family Thanksgiving. He was dressed for a business takeover. His suit was a sharp charcoal gray that probably cost more than my first car. Emily was sitting on the edge of the sofa, nursing a glass of wine, looking like a woman waiting for a bomb to go off. Dinner is almost ready, I said, my voice calm, practiced. I hope you're hungry. Ryan turned. He didn't smile. He scrutinized me, his eyes scanning my cardigan, my worn slippers, searching for weakness. LaVonne, he said. He never called me Mom. We need to talk now, before we eat. Can't it wait until we've had some turkey? I asked, feigning a mild elderly wariness. I've made the cranberry sauce from scratch. No, it cannot wait, he said, stepping forward. He placed his bourbon glass on the coaster with a sharp clink. I've made a decision. My parents are moving into the music room on the 1st of the month. We've already canceled their lease in Oak Park. It wasn't a question. It was an eviction notice delivered in my own living room. I looked at Emily. She was studying the wine in her glass, refusing to meet my eyes. Emily, I asked gently, do you have anything to say about this? She looked up, her face pale, a sheen of sweat on her upper lip. Mama, look, it makes sense. Okay, you're getting older. The house is too much for you to manage alone. If his parents move in downstairs, they can help. They can keep an eye on you. Keep an eye on me, I repeated slowly. Like a warden, like family. Ryan cut in, his voice icy. We are trying to help you, LaVonne. You're 67. You're forgetting things. Last week, you forgot to call us on Sunday. I was at the community center, I said. You were confused, he corrected. rewriting reality with the confidence of a sociopath. And frankly, it's selfish of you to hoard this much space while family is struggling. My parents need that apartment. You don't use it. It's just gathering dust and ghosts. I took a deep breath. The smell of the turkey was suddenly nauseating. No, I said. Ryan blinked. It was a glitch in his programming. He wasn't used to the word. Excuse me, I said. No, I repeated, my voice dropping an octave, losing the tremulous quality I usually adopted around them. The music room was Roger's sanctuary. It is my private space now. It is not available. Your parents cannot move in. Ryan's face flushed a deep, ugly crimson. The mask of the concerned son-in-law slipped, revealing the entitlement rotting underneath. You selfish old woman, he whispered. How dare you? After everything we do for you, we visit you. We tolerate your stories. We let you be part of our lives. You tolerate me. I looked at him. I paid the deposit on your apartment, Ryan. I co-signed the lease on your Audi. I gave you $100,000 2 years ago for a startup that, to my knowledge, hasn't produced a single dollar of revenue. That was an investment, Emily shouted, jumping up. That's business. This is family. You're throwing it in our faces. I am stating facts, I said. And the fact is this is my home. And the answer is no. Ryan grabbed the nearest object. It happened in slow motion. His hand snatched a plate from the side table, a small appetizer plate I had set out with cheese and crackers. It wasn't fine china, but it was one Roger had bought in a market in New Orleans. He didn't hesitate. He hurled it. It flew past my head, missing me by inches, and smashed against the brick fireplace. Crack! The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Shards of white ceramic exploded across the Persian rug. You selfish, senile witch, he screamed, his voice cracking. You want to be alone? Fine, you'll be alone. We are leaving. He turned to Emily, breathing heavily, his chest heaving. Emily, tell her, we're done. This was the moment, the crucible. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the girl I had taught to braid her hair, the woman I had bailed out of debt 3 times. I waited for her to stand up. I waited for her to tell her husband that throwing crockery at her mother was the line. Emily looked at the broken plate. Then she looked at me, her eyes hardened. You shouldn't have upset him, Mama, she said, cold, flat, and dead. You know how he gets when he's stressed. This is on you. On me, I asked softly. If you can't support this family, Emily said, reciting the script he had undoubtedly drilled into her, then you aren't part of it. Don't call us. Don't expect us for Christmas. You're on your own. She grabbed her coat. Ryan was already at the door, shaking with rage. Come on, Emily, he spat. Let her rot in this mausoleum. They stormed out. The heavy oak front door slammed with a finality that shook the windows. I heard their footsteps stomping down the stone stairs to the street. I stood in the silence. I looked at the shattered plate on the rug. A piece of blue-painted ceramic, a memory of a humid day in the French Quarter, lay turned over like a dead beetle. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't pain. It wasn't sorrow. It was relief. The fog lifted. The guilt I had carried for years, the worry that I wasn't doing enough, that I was failing them, evaporated. They had made their choice. They had drawn the line. I walked to the kitchen. I turned off the oven. I wasn't hungry. I untied the apron and folded it neatly on the counter. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Not the old flip phone I used around them, but the sleek encrypted smartphone I used for my real life. I dialed a single number. It rang once. Happy Thanksgiving, LaVonne. The voice on the other end was warm and sharp. It was Victoria, my younger sister, and the only other person on earth who knew the full extent of the VNC empire. Did they enjoy the bird? They didn't stay for the bird, I said, my voice perfectly steady. Victoria paused. The jovial tone vanished, replaced by the sharp predatory focus that had terrified Wall Street for 3 decades. What happened? He threw a plate at me. Victoria, at my head. Ryan, yes, and Emily. Emily watched. She blamed me. She said I was no longer her mother because I wouldn't let his parents move into Roger's music room. Silence stretched across the line. I could hear the faint clink of silverware in the background. Victoria was likely having dinner at her penthouse at the Four Seasons. I see, Victoria said quietly. So, the experiment is over. Yes, I said. The experiment is over. I tried, Tori. I tried to raise her to value character over cash. I kept the money hidden so she wouldn't be corrupted by it. but she was corrupted anyway. Not by the money, but by the lack of it and by him. Greed is a powerful accelerant, Victoria agreed. What are your orders? I walked to the window and looked down at the street. I could see them getting into their car, the silver Audi I had guaranteed the lease for. Protocol Omega, I said. Omega. Victoria actually sounded surprised. That's the nuclear option, LaVonne. Total asset stripping. You sure? He called me a selfish old woman, I said, watching the Audi pull away from the curb. He said I was rotting. I think it's time I showed them exactly how much of their life is supported by the rot. Understood, Victoria said. I could hear the smile in her voice now. A cold, dangerous thing. I'll wake up the legal team. I'll call Harrison. Do you want to start with the housing or the finance? Everything, I said. All of it. Tonight, I want them to wake up in a new world. Consider it done. I'll be there in an hour. Don't clean up the plate. Why? Evidence, Victoria said. We're going to need it. The drive from the Gold Coast to River North usually took 20 minutes, but with holiday traffic, it took Emily and Ryan 40. That was 40 minutes for Ryan's rage to calcify into self-righteous victimhood, and for Emily's spine to dissolve completely. They pulled up to the curb of Azure Towers, the gleaming glass and steel building where they lived in a corner unit on the 30th floor. It was a V&C Global property. Of course, I had bought the building 5 years ago. They paid, or rather thought they paid, a preferential rent. In reality, I subsidized 70% of it. Ryan tossed the keys to the valet. Keep it close. We're going out again later. They marched into the lobby, the heels of Ryan's shoes clicking aggressively on the marble. They headed straight for the elevators. Ryan pressed the call button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Nothing. Broken, he muttered. Classic. This building is going to hell. They walked to the concierge desk. The concierge, a young woman named Diana, whom I had personally hired, looked up. Usually, she greeted them with a smile. Tonight, she looked uncomfortable. She looked like a woman who had been given a very specific, very difficult set of instructions. The elevator isn't working for us. Diana, Ryan snapped. Swipe us up. I'm afraid I can't do that, Mr. Parker, Diana said, her voice tight. Excuse me, your fobs, Diana said, sliding a white envelope across the marble counter. They've been deactivated. The management has issued an immediate termination of lease. Termination? Emily laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. That's impossible. We have a lease until next year. We pay rent automatically. Read the letter, ma'am, Diana said, looking down at her screen. Ryan snatched the envelope. He tore it open, his hands shredding the paper. He scanned the document. His face went pale, then blotchy red. Moral turpitude, he shrieked. What the hell is this? Clause 1 for B, Diana read calmly. The landlord reserves the right to immediate eviction in cases of verifiable abuse, assault, or harassment against company principals or their immediate family. We haven't harassed anyone. We just had dinner with her mother, I believe, Diana said, her eyes meeting his with a steeliness he wasn't expecting. That the building ownership considers Ms. LaVonne Chen a principal of the highest order. Her mother, Ryan, looked at the letter, then at Emily. Her mother owns the landlord. She called them from the kitchen. She's a petty, vindictive old witch, he screamed, slamming his hand on the desk. I want to speak to the manager now. The management office is closed for the holiday, Diana said calmly. The letter states you have 24 hours to remove your belongings. Access will be granted strictly between 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. tomorrow, under security escort. For tonight, you are not permitted entry. You can't do this, Emily shouted. It's Thanksgiving. Where are we supposed to sleep? I suggest the hotel, ma'am, Diana said. Please leave the lobby or I will be forced to call the police. And Mr. Parker, the valet has been instructed to return your keys. You are blocking the fire lane. The wind off Lake Michigan was biting, whipping through Ryan's expensive coat as they stood on the sidewalk. The humiliation was total. People were watching from the hotel bar across the street. She did this, Ryan hissed, pacing like a caged animal. She knows someone. She must have begged. She played the poor, abused senior card to the landlord. We need a room, Emily said, shivering. Let's just go to the peninsula. We'll sort this out with a lawyer in the morning. They drove 2 blocks to the Peninsula Hotel. They walked in demanding a suite. Ryan slapped his black card on the counter, the card he brandished like a weapon at every restaurant and boutique in the city. The receptionist swiped it. She frowned. She swiped it again. I'm sorry, sir. It's declined. Try it again, Ryan snapped. It has a $50,000 limit. It says card reported, lost or stolen. Confiscate, the receptionist said, her eyes widening. That's ridiculous. Try the Visa. Emily handed over her card. Declined. Issuer request. The Amex declined. 5 cards. 5 rejections. Ryan was trembling now, not from cold, but from a creeping existential terror. He checked his banking app on his phone. Access denied. Account frozen due to suspicious activity. Please contact your branch. She froze them, Emily whispered, staring at her phone. Mama, she's the guarantor. She didn't just co-sign the lease, Ryan. She backed the accounts. She's the primary account holder on the back end. She can't just turn off our money. Ryan screamed, drawing stares from the lobby guests. It's our money. I earned it. Technically, Emily said, her voice hollow. It's credit and it's her credit. They were escorted out of the peninsula by security. They ended up at a motel on the south side, a place with bulletproof glass at the reception and a smell of stale cigarettes that clung to the walls. They paid for the room with the $200 cash Emily had in her wallet. Ryan sat on the lumpy mattress, still in his designer suit. He wasn't crying. He was vibrating with a rage so pure it looked painful. She thinks she can starve us out, he whispered. She thinks she can humiliate me. Me. He grabbed his phone. What are you doing? Emily asked, sitting on the floor, her head in her hands. I'm calling Adult Protective Services, he said, his thumb hovering over the screen. If she wants to play vulnerable senior, let's see how she likes it when the state gets involved. I'm going to tell them she's senile. I'm going to tell them she's paranoid. I'm going to tell them she's a danger to herself and others. Ryan, don't, Emily pleaded weakly. That's going too far. She made us homeless, Emily, he screamed. She declared war. I'm just finishing it. By tomorrow morning, she'll be in a psych ward and I'll be her legal guardian. And then we'll see who gets evicted. He hit dial. The doorbell rang at 9 p.m. sharp. I was expecting it. Victoria was already in the library, out of sight with Mr. Harrison, the finest litigator in Illinois. I opened the door. A man stood there clutching a clipboard against the biting wind. He looked tired, kind, and overworked. Miss LaVonne Chen, he asked. Yes. I made my voice quaver slightly. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around myself. I'm Mr. Sterling from Adult Protective Services. We received an emergency referral regarding your welfare. May I come in at? I blinked, stepping back, letting him into the warmth of the foyer. I don't understand. Is this about my pension? No, ma'am, Mr. Sterling said, stepping inside and glancing around. He saw the clean hallway, the polished wood, but he also saw the stack of newspapers I had strategically scattered on the floor, and the unwashed tea mug I had left on the table. It's about a report from your family, your daughter Emily, and her husband Ryan. They claim you threatened them tonight, that you were confused, aggressive. Emily, I sat down heavily on the bench in the hallway. But we just had dinner. It was Thanksgiving. They say you threw them out, Miss Chen. They say you were hallucinating about people living in your basement. The music room, I whispered, looking at him with wide, watery eyes. Ryan, he wants the studio. Roger's studio. He said I was taking up too much space. He threw a plate. Mr. Sterling paused, his pen hovering over his notepad. He threw a plate at you. I think so, I said, rubbing my forehead. It happened so fast. He was shouting. He called me selfish. I just wanted them to leave. I was scared. I pointed to the living room. The pieces, I haven't picked them up yet. I was afraid I'd cut myself. Mr. Sterling walked into the living room. He saw the shattered blue ceramic on the hearth. He saw the dent in the plaster where it had hit. This wasn't the aftermath of a confused old woman. It was the scene of a domestic disturbance. Ms. Chen, he said, his voice softening. You said you felt unsafe. They want the house, I said, letting a single tear track down my cheek. They keep telling me I belong in a home, a nursing home. Ryan said he would make me go. Mr. Sterling's face hardened. He had seen this 1,000 times. Greedy children, aging parents, and the weaponization of the system. Miss Chen, he began, I need to ask about your finances. Do you control your own money? I try, I said, but Emily helps. She says I'm not good with numbers anymore. I see. He wrote something down. Suspected financial exploitation. Just then, the library door opened. That won't be necessary, Mr. Sterling, a voice rang out. Mr. Sterling jumped. Victoria stepped into the hallway, immaculate in a charcoal pantsuit, looking like she owned the zip code, which technically she did. Beside her was Mr. Harrison, holding a leather briefcase. Who are you? Mr. Sterling asked, stepping back. I am Victoria Chen, LaVonne's sister, Victoria said smoothly, and this is Mr. Harrison, LaVonne's personal counsel. Counsel. Mr. Sterling looked from me, the frail old woman, to these titans of industry. I am conducting a welfare check, and we appreciate your diligence, Mr. Harrison said, stepping forward. He didn't offer a hand, he offered a document. However, the report filed by Ryan Parker is demonstrably false and malicious. Here is an affidavit from Dr. Williams, Miss Chen's physician, dated yesterday, certifying her fully competent, and here, he handed over a second document. There's a copy of the temporary restraining order filed an hour ago against Emily Parker and Ryan Parker for elder abuse, assault, and attempted extortion. Mr. Sterling took the papers. He read the trawl. He looked at the photos attached. Photos of the shattered plate. Photos of text messages Ryan had sent me months ago demanding money. Oh my God, he whispered. They swatted you with apps. Precisely, Victoria said. They attempted to weaponize your agency to secure guardianship because they were evicted from their apartment this evening for non-payment and lease violations. Mr. Sterling looked at me. I straightened up. The tremor in my hand vanished. The confusion left my eyes. I am not senile, Mr. Sterling, I said calmly. I am simply a mother who finally said no. Mr. Sterling closed his notebook. He looked furious, not at me, but at the people who had wasted his time and tried to make him an accomplice to a crime. I am so sorry, Ms. Chen, he said. I will mark this report as unfounded, malicious referral. I will also be flagging their names in our system. They won't be able to try this again. Thank you, I said. He turned to leave, but at the door he hesitated. He looked at his phone, then back at us. Ms. Chen, Mr. Sterling said, his voice dropping low. Can I speak to you off the record? Victoria nodded. Go ahead. I shouldn't tell you this, he said, stepping closer. But I've been doing this for 20 years. I know a predator when I see one. When the referral came in, it wasn't just the hotline. Ryan Parker called a personal contact, a Dr. Evans. Victoria stiffened. Evans, the disgrace who runs the private clinic in Oaklawn. The same, Sterling said. I saw the note in the intake file. He didn't just ask for a check. He asked for a Section 12, an emergency psychiatric hold. He's trying to bypass the courts. He has an ambulance coming tonight. Tonight, I asked. The order is signed, Sterling said urgently. If they find you here, they can take you. It's a 72-hour hold. In those 72 hours, he can file for emergency temporary guardianship while you're medicated and unable to speak. Once he has that, he can access your accounts. He's going for the nuclear option, Victoria muttered. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Sterling checked his watch. If I were you, I wouldn't be home. Thank you, I said, offering him my hand. This time, it was firm. You have no idea what you've just done. Go, he said. I'll stay on the porch and stall them, but get out. We need to move, Victoria barked. The boardroom demeanor replaced by pure operational speed. LaVonne grabbed the red bag. Harrison, get the car. I ran upstairs, not shuffled. Ran. I grabbed the pre-packed duffel bag from my closet, the one containing my passports, hard drives, and the emergency ledger. I didn't look back at the bedrooms. I didn't look back at Roger's music room. I ran back down. Victoria was already at the back door checking the alleyway security feed on her phone. Ambulance is turning onto the street, she said. 2 orderlies, big guys. This isn't a medical pickup. It's a kidnapping. We exited through the garden, the cold air slapping my face. The alley was dark. Victoria's car, an armored Mercedes S-Class, was idling there. Mr. Harrison behind the wheel. As we dove into the back seat, I saw them. The private ambulance pulled up to the front of the greystone. No sirens, just lights cutting through the fog. 2 men jumped out, carrying restraints. Mr. Sterling met them on the steps, his clipboard raised like a shield, blocking their path. Go, Victoria said. Mr. Harrison gunned the engine. We shot down the alley, tires crunching on the old pavement, slipping out onto the main road just as the ambulance team realized they had been blocked. We didn't speak until we were crossing the bridge toward the loop, the city lights blurring past. He tried to have me committed, I whispered, the reality settling in. He was going to drug me and steal everything. He's desperate, Victoria said, typing furiously on her tablet. And desperate people make mistakes. But we have a problem. What? I just got the report from the IT team. Protocol Omega hit a snag. We arrived at Victoria's penthouse at the Four Seasons. It was a fortress of glass and steel, a stark contrast to my warm, historic greystone. The operations room was set up in the dining area. 3 IT specialists were working on laptops. Report, Victoria commanded, walking in. The lead tech, A young woman named Sarah looked up. She looked pale. We locked them out of the apartment and the bank accounts, Sarah said, but we tried to remotely image the servers for Ryan's startup, Apex Marketing, to get the evidence of the embezzlement. And the servers are offline permanently. What do you mean? I asked. I mean physically destroyed, Sarah said. We pulled the security footage from the co-working space. 2 hours ago, right after they were evicted, Ryan went to the office. He didn't take the computers. He took a hammer to them. He smashed the drives. Then he poured bleach into the tower cases. The cloud backups, Victoria asked, deleted. And the account recovery requires a 2FA key that was on a physical fob, which he also destroyed. I sank into a chair. The evidence, the proof that he bought the Range Rover with my money, it's gone. We know he did it, Sarah said. We can see the money left your account and went to Apex. But we can't prove where it went from there without the internal Apex ledgers. He wiped the trail. Without that proof, the embezzlement charge won't stick. It's just a bad business investment, Victoria finished. So we have no criminal leverage, I said. We have the trawl, but he can fight that. He can claim the Section 12 was out of genuine concern. If we can't prove he stole the money, he walks away. He loses the apartment, sure, but he stays free, and he'll spend the rest of his life suing you for mismanagement of his wife's inheritance. I looked out the window at the city below. Ryan had anticipated the audit. He was smarter than I gave him credit for. He had destroyed the evidence of his past crimes. Then we can't prosecute him for the past, I said, my voice hardening. We have to catch him, in the present. How? Victoria asked. He thinks I'm hiding money, I said. He's convinced I'm a tax cheat because he can't imagine anyone having wealth without stealing it. So let's give him what he wants. The Swiss trap. Victoria smiled. It was a shark's smile. The Swiss trap, I agreed. If we can't prove he stole from me, we'll get him to try and blackmail me. That's a federal crime we can record in real time. The next 6 hours were a blur of fabrication. Victoria's team in Zurich, the best in the world, went to work. They didn't move money. They moved pixels. They created a dossier. It was a masterpiece of fiction. It showed a fake shell company, Argentum Holdings, registered in Panama. It showed fake wire transfers of millions of dollars siphoned from VNC Global into private Swiss accounts under my name. It looked exactly like the kind of dirty tax evading scheme Ryan desperately wanted to find. We need to get this to him, I said, looking at the printed red file. But he can't know it came from us. He's at the motel on the south side, Victoria said. He's trying to find a lawyer who will take his case on contingency. I know a guy, Holloway. He's a bottom feeder. He hates Mr. Harrison. He'll do it. No, I said. Holloway is too smart to touch this without verifying it. We need someone he trusts or someone he thinks he can use. A private investigator, Victoria suggested. Someone who claims to be a disgruntled former employee of mine. Someone who claims to have stolen the files. Perfect, I said. Send in the cleaner. The knock on the motel door came at 7 a.m. Ryan was awake, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Emily was asleep, curled up like a child. He opened the door. A man stood there in a trench coat, looking nervous, checking the parking lot over his shoulder. Mr. Parker, who are you? Ryan demanded. My name is irrelevant, the man said. I used to work for VNC Global in the accounting department. I heard what happened to you. The eviction, it's sick. What do you want? Revenge, the man said. Victoria fired me 2 weeks ago, cut my pension. I took something before I left. A file. I was going to send it to the IRS, but I don't want the heat. He held up a thick red envelope. What is it? Proof, the man whispered. LaVonne isn't just rich, she's a criminal. Tax evasion, money laundering, millions of dollars in offshore accounts. It's all here. Bank numbers, passwords, everything. Ryan's eyes widened. He snatched the envelope. He opened it, scanning the fake Swiss letterheads, the Panama Incorporation papers. It was beautiful. It was the weapon he had been praying for. Why give it to me? He asked. Because you can use it, the man said. You can destroy her or you can make her pay. Just when you get your settlement, remember, the little guy. He turned and ran, disappearing around the corner of the building. Ryan stood there, the cold morning air biting his skin, holding the red file. He began to laugh. It started as a chuckle and ended as a cackle. He kicked the door shut and threw the file onto the bed, waking Emily. Wake up, he said, grinning like a wolf. We just won the lottery. My phone rang at 8 a.m. I put it on speaker. Victoria signaled the recording team. Hello, I answered, my voice shaky. LaVonne, Ryan purred. He sounded entirely different from the screaming maniac of the night before. He sounded calm. He sounded like he was in charge. Did you sleep well? I know I didn't. The motel you sent us to is dreadful. Ryan, please, I stammered. I tried to call you. I wanted to save it, he snapped. The act is over, LaVonne. I know. I know about Argentum Holdings. I know about the Panama accounts. I know about the $3 million you wired to Zurich last month. I let out a gasp. How? How did you? It doesn't matter how, he said. I have the file. I have the proof. You're a tax cheat, LaVonne. You've been hiding millions from the IRS and from us. Ryan, you don't understand, I pleaded. That money, it's complicated. If the IRS sees that, you'll go to prison, he finished cheerfully, for a very long time. A woman your age, you'd die in there. What do you want? I asked. Please don't send it. I want what I deserved from the beginning, he said. I want the deed to the greystone signed over to me, not Emily, me. And I want $5 million wired to an account I will provide today. $5 million. I can't move that much cash without raising alarms. Figure it out, he said, cold as ice. We are meeting at your lawyer's office at noon. Have the papers ready, or I drop this file in the mailbox of the district attorney on my way out. Tick-tock, LaVonne. He hung up. Victoria stopped the recording. Attempted extortion, federal felony. We got him. We have the hook, I said, standing up and smoothing my blouse. Now let's reel him in. The conference room at Harrison and Associates was an intimidator's dream, high above the city, overlooking the lake with a table long enough to land a plane on. I sat on one side, flanked by Victoria and Mr. Harrison. We were silent. The door opened. Ryan walked in. He had somehow managed to look presentable despite the motel stay. He wore his arrogance like armor. Emily trailed behind him, looking like a ghost. They were accompanied by Perkins, a lawyer they had dug up from a billboard ad who looked sweaty and terrified to be in the same room as Mr. Harrison. "Oh," Ryan said, taking a seat at the head of the table. He tossed the red file onto the mahogany surface. Thud. "Shall we skip the pleasantries? Mr. Parker," Mr. Harrison said coolly, "you are violating a restraining order by being here." "I'm here to negotiate a settlement," Ryan said, tapping the file. "Unless you want your client indicted for international tax fraud." Perkins cleared his throat. "My client alleges that Ms. Chen has engaged in significant financial impropriety. We represent that a settlement of, what was it, $5 million plus the real estate would be sufficient to resolve the matter privately." "It's blackmail," Victoria said simply. "It's leverage," Ryan corrected. He looked at me. "Sign the papers, LaVonne. Give me the house. Give me the money. And you can keep your secrets. You can go live in your penthouse or wherever you actually live, and we will never speak again." I looked at Emily. "Emily," I said softly, "do you agree with this?" Emily looked at the file. She looked at Ryan. She looked at the promise of $5 million. "Just sign it, Mama," she whispered. "You have so much. Why can't you just share it? We're family." "Family," I repeated. "Family doesn't blackmail family, Emily. You started it," Ryan shouted. "You cut us off. Sign the damn papers." I looked at Victoria. I nodded. "Actually," Victoria said, leaning forward, "I think we should look at your evidence first." She reached out and pulled the red file across the table. Ryan watched her, smirking. "Go ahead," he said. "Check the routing numbers. They're real. Ooh, they are real," Victoria said, opening the file. "But you missed a detail. You see, Argentum Holdings isn't a shell company." She pulled a document from her own briefcase and slid it across to him. "It's the holding entity for the Roger and LaVonne Charitable Foundation." Ryan froze. "What?" "The foundation," Mr. Harrison explained, his voice surgical. "A 501c3 registered nonprofit. Those illegal wire transfers to Zurich, those were endowments for the International Red Cross and Doctors Without Borders. Every single penny is audited, declared, and tax exempt." "That's a lie," Ryan stammered, his hand shaking as he reached for the paper. "It's a cover. It's public record," I said, speaking clearly for the first time. "If you had bothered to Google the routing number, instead of fantasizing about spending the money, you would have seen it. I don't hide my money, Ryan. I give it away. I've given away more money this year than you will earn in 10 lifetimes. This is a trick," he whispered. He looked at Perkins. "Do something." Perkins was already packing his briefcase. I was not aware of this context. "I cannot be party to extortion based on false evidence." "Sit down, Perkins," Victoria barked. "We're not done. So your blackmail attempt has failed," Mr. Harrison said. "Which brings us to the matter of the loan." "The loan?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. The $100,000, I said. The investment in Apex Marketing. The servers are gone, Ryan snapped, regaining a fraction of his composure. You can't prove anything about that money. It was a business loss. Bad market. True, Victoria said. You did a thorough job smashing those drives, Ryan. Very cinematic. Ryan paled. I don't know what you're talking about. However, Mr. Harrison continued, while you destroyed the local data, you forgot about the vendor side. He slid a single piece of paper across the table. It was an invoice. We recovered this from the internal database of Luxury Motors Chicago. It's the purchase order for a 2023 Range Rover Sport, paid for via wire transfer from Apex Marketing, signed by you, Ryan Parker. I leaned forward. You didn't spend the money on the business, Emily. He spent it on a car he registered in his name. He stole the seed money I gave you. Emily stared at the invoice. She stared at the signature. She choked out. You told me that was a performance bonus. You told me the company was making profit. I was protecting us, Ryan screamed. I was investing in assets. You were embezzling, Mr. Harrison said. And since you used a wire transfer to move the funds from a business account to a personal asset, that is wire fraud, a federal crime. And as for you, Emily, Mr. Harrison turned to my daughter, by participating in this meeting, by sitting here while your husband attempted to blackmail your mother, you have violated the moral turpitude clause of your loan agreement. I didn't know, Emily cried. I thought the file was real. Ignorance is not a defense, I said. You chose greed over truth. Again, the loan is accelerated, Mr. Harrison stated. The full principal of $100,000 plus a $25,000 penalty is due immediately. I don't have it, Emily whispered. We have nothing. We know, Victoria said. Mr. Harrison pressed a button on the intercom. Send them in. The side door opened. 3 agents in FBI windbreakers stepped in. They didn't look like TV cops. They looked like accountants with guns. Ryan Parker, the lead agent asked. Ryan stood up, knocking his chair over. No, this is a mistake. She's the criminal. Look at the file. We've seen the file, sir, the agent said. We listened to the call you made this morning. You are under arrest for attempted extortion and wire fraud. They moved in fast, efficient. Emily, Ryan shrieked as they cuffed his hands behind his back. Help me, do something, you coward. Emily sat frozen, watching her husband, the man who had driven a wedge between us for a decade, being dragged out of the room. I'll sue you. He screamed at me as they pushed him through the door. I'll kill you. Then silence. The room was quiet, save for the sound of Emily weeping. It wasn't a dignified cry. It was the messy, painful sobbing of a child who has broken her favorite toy. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red, swollen. Mama, she wheezed. I didn't know he was stealing. I swear. But you knew he was cruel, I said softly. You knew he was throwing me out of my home, and you stood by him. I was afraid, she confessed. He's so strong and I'm weak. I finished. You are weak, Emily, and weakness is dangerous. Weakness let him steal my money. Weakness let him abuse me. And weakness brought you here to try and destroy me. Help me, she begged. I have nowhere to go. No job, no home, no husband. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I looked at my daughter, and I felt a terrible, crushing pity. But I also felt resolve. I gave you a lifeline, Emily, I said. I gave you money. I gave you a home. And you tried to hang me with it. Mama, please. You are 35 years old, I said. So figure it out. I turned and walked out of the room, Victoria and Harrison flanking me like guards. We left her there alone in the boardroom, with nothing but the view of a city she could no longer afford. That the chandeliers of the Palmer House glittered like diamonds. The gala for the Roger and LaVonne Foundation was the event of the season. I stood at the podium looking out at the sea of tuxedos and gowns. I had just announced a new $10 million fund to provide legal defense for elderly victims of financial abuse. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped off the stage, I saw her. She was standing near the kitchen entrance, holding a tray of empty champagne flutes. She was wearing a server's uniform, black vest, white shirt, slightly frayed at the collar. She looked thinner. Her hair was pulled back tight. She looked tired. She saw me. She froze. I walked over to her. The crowd parted for me. The billionaire philanthropist. Hello, Emily, I said. She lowered her eyes. Miss Chen, she said. I didn't know this was your event. The agency sent me. I can leave. You're working? I asked. Yes, ma'am. 2 jobs, this and retail during the day. And Ryan, prison, she said briefly. I filed for divorce. It's final next month. She looked up, and for the first time in years her eyes were clear. There was no arrogance, no entitlement, just shame. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know it doesn't matter, but I looked at her rough hands. I looked at the cheap shoes. She had lost everything. And in losing everything, she had finally found the one thing I couldn't buy her. Character. When is your break?" I asked. "Now, actually." "Good," I said. I gestured to a quiet table in the corner of the lobby, away from the cameras and the "Put the tray down, Emily." "Ma'am." "Put the tray down," I repeated, a ghost of a smile touching my lips. "Let's get some tea. I think we have a lot to talk about." She hesitated. Then she set the tray on a side table. She walked with me, not as a daughter claiming an inheritance, but as a woman, earning a moment of time. We sat down. The tea was hot. The silence between us was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was a start. And for the first time in a long time, it was real. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.